So hello everyone, good morning. My name is Eti, and I'm the founder of AGS Tribe, a platform that connects women to each other and to opportunities. Today, I'm going to be your moderator. I'm going to be having this awesome conversation. So welcome to everybody here, our awesome speakers, our attendees, everyone who has joined in. Thank you so much for joining and coming on time as well. We're really excited to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about digital identity matters, how seamless customer onboarding is transforming Fintech's growth. But before we even jump into it, for the people, I'm not going to assume that everybody here knows what digital identity is. So I'm just going to define it in very simple terms. So digital identity is the body of information about an individual, organization, or electronic device that exists online. So before we continue, I would like to talk about or introduce the two organizations that have actually made today's session possible. The first organization I'm going to talk about is VerifyMe Nigeria. So VerifyMe is building the Nigerian trust infrastructure by offering digital identity and verification services to a wide range of industries and the retail market. And they are actually licensed by the National Identity Management Commission. So that's NIMC. And their verification services are available by API via full service managed verification platform. So TechCabal, and I actually absolutely love the VerifyMe platform. And as we go on, I will also talk about, why I also love the platform. So TechCabal is also another platform I love. So TechCabal is a digital publication that speaks to both the business and human impact of technology in Africa through high quality articles, reports, and events like this. So they also publish the TechCabal daily newsletter, which is a comprehensive roundup of tech news and events across Africa that you guys should actually subscribe to. So everybody listening here, just go and click on the subscription button so that you can get the scoop of everything that is going on. So I'm also going to introduce our amazing speakers. Babs Ogundeyi, who is the CEO of Kuda. Babs is the CEO and co-founder of Kuda, Nigeria's first full-service digital-only bank, which is licensed by CBN. And they are on a mission to make banking more accessible and affordable. Prior to founding Kuda, I remember even seeing him, back in the day. I'm not sure if you would remember this, walking into Standard Chartered Bank. I used to see him, all the time, not knowing that in the future he will actually, be one of the people who are actually transforming, the banking industry in Nigeria. So kudos, Babs. I'm really excited to see you here again. Next person I would like to introduce is Esigie Aguele. I hope I didn't damage, his name. So he's the co-founder and CEO of VerifyMe Nigeria. So he's responsible for fulfilling the company's mission and vision and developing strategic solutions for long-term growth. So he's previously served as the COO, which is the Chief Operating Officer, and he's a seasoned expert in systems engineering, enterprise and solutions, architecture, and business transformation. Dayo Ademola, who is also my cousin, and we actually always meet at sessions like this. So the last time I saw her was a session with, with another bank, and, we just caught up, and I'm super excited about all the wonderful and amazing things that she's also doing. She's currently the managing director, Nigeria, for Branch International, which is a San Francisco-based fintech operating organization in Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, and India. Previously, she used to be with the FINA. She's also worked with Union Bank, and she has over 15 years experience in the industry. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation here today. So I'm going to start with Babs. So Babs, you have the floor. Please talk to us about, how, important digital identities are and how it's actually transforming the fintech space in terms of onboarding and everything that you've experienced so far on your journey.
Thanks, Ife, for the introduction. I think I'd like to say, I remember walking into Standard Chartered, Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for having me here. I think we've kind of come a long way in sort of, KYC and just, onboarding for financial services generally. And I think a lot of things has made that happen sort of over the years, which of course a company like Kuda would not exist if those things hadn't been in place. So, and it's a lot of effort from like lots of different players, from, internet providers to sort of drop in prices of, mobile devices. And then of course, enabling regulation as well. And those sort of companies that really focus on KYC, enabling things like facial recognition and whatnot. So it's all of these things that, that makes it possible to actually be able to onboard a customer. And, when we started sort of Kuda, when we launched in 2019, a lot has happened since then. It's really truly evolved since then as well. So I'll just explain the onboarding process at Kuda, and then I'll talk about a few of the other things that kind of make that possible. So essentially, because of the environment we're in, we kind of have to have different levels of onboarding, just because, unfortunately, not every single person in Nigeria has sort of exactly the same type of ID. Some people don't even have ID. Some people don't know when they're born, but they still deserve to have access to financial services. So we kind of have to really think about it to make sure that we do enough to capture everybody and to give everybody a chance to be onboarded. So generally, we have sort of 3 tiers of customers, 3 categories of customers, which is in line with the central bank CBN guidelines for microfinance banks. So because we have a microfinance banking license, we've literally had to build our processes around that. So essentially, for you to have a Kuda account, you kind of, at the minimum, we need to know what you look like, so in as much as it seems very sort of simple, but the fact that you're able to take a selfie, so there's the technology we use actually ensures that when you're holding your phone and opening an account, you have to take a selfie. You can't take a picture of somebody else, or there's like things like liveness checks to make sure that the person that is holding the phone, which we can assume is the person opening the account, is the person's picture that we have. So that's like kind of like the first base, and then we go deeper to sort of try to verify phone numbers. Again, this is not foolproof, but it gives us a level of assurance that, okay, maybe, at least we have the right person's phone number. And then I think, in Nigeria, we're quite lucky to have the BVN. I know it was like super stressful, like when it was being launched, but to be fair, I think it's one of the best things that has been done sort of by the government, because that really helps kind of, to help us get additional comfort, with people's identity. So BVN is very important. I mean, it's very important to most, I'm sure most other financial institutions, or most, not just fintechs, but also other financial institutions as well. And of course, it's mandatory for bank account holders at least sort of when you're operating within a certain, if you want to operate up to a certain limit, it's mandatory. So we rely on BVN. Because we're a bank, we have direct access to the BVN database. So we're able to sort of confirm the authenticity of that BVN, and we use the sort of the different technologies to compare the pictures to the selfie and whatnot. And then, we have additional assurance from, actual government issued identification, which again is quite important because, it's just another level of check, in as much as, I don't want to admit it, but, because I'm Nigerian, but, we unfortunately have a high level of sort of attempted fraud. It's global, but it's a lot in Nigeria. A high level of attempted fraud, lots of forgeries, lots of attempts to kind of circumvent these kind of processes. So the more steps you have and the more things, the more documentation you have to corroborate, it just gives a level of assurance. So all of these things have been really helpful, and I think APIs have been kind of super critical as well. Just basically connecting directly to the source information. So without all of these things, to be honest, Kuda could not exist, because that's literally the first base of sort of having customers. So it's been super helpful for us. It's just it's a big component of our operation, because we need to know who is transacting with us. So it's something we take we don't take lightly. But the reality is onboarding and KYC is something that actually it never stops. It's something that requires continuous iteration, because as I said, there are criminals and fraudsters and scammers that are trying to circumvent, and unfortunately these guys are super smart. Many times I've said at meetings that we need to hire a couple of these guys just to help stay ahead of the game, because the more we iterate, they're also not sleeping. So it's very important that we keep on our toes and make sure that we keep improving as much as possible. Unfortunately, there are limitations that we found anyway, with things like sort of certain devices, so we want to do things like, video calls and whatnot, but it's not always easy with certain types of phones and whatnot. But these are potential things that can be done over time. And as phones and mobile devices become sort of I guess better and cheaper, so the quality improves, the price goes down, we will see those improvements over time. We're still at the infancy of sort of digital innovation in the region. So there's a lot of, the good thing is there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of opportunity that exists for everybody. So yeah, I think I've done 10 minutes. Have I done over 10 minutes? Okay.
I don't think it's up yet, but okay. I like the direction of the conversation. I also love the fact that you have to actually take a selfie. So not upload a picture, take a selfie. So that maybe later on you might even upload maybe a nicer picture or whatever. But at least the fact that you have to take that selfie, I need to know that it is you that is opening that account. And why this is important is because Nigerians, and this is not to even abuse anyone or anything like that, I think from it's almost as if the environment enables fraud, right? And it starts from very, very little things. You mentioned that, these fraudsters and all of that, they're not sleeping. They're like, always trying to do different things. And even something as little as, so I have something happened recently. We did like an exchange of gift things within my community, maybe I think in February. So we asked people to like just do like you send a gift out on Valentine's Day, and then you also receive a gift. And you wouldn't believe that some people who registered for that particular session didn't actually send out their gifts. And you are calling them saying, okay, you received your gift, but you haven't sent a gift out. That is actually fraud. And the next thing, they're deleting you, they're blocking you from their phones, you can't reach them on anything. And guess what? This is on that small scale, right? This same person, the person has access to like bank account information and everything. The person can actually maybe even transfer money out of an account to another person's account just from that little seed. So it's important that we have these systems and processes in place to ensure that even if that happens, we can actually track these people down. So I'm really, really excited about everything that is happening with digital identity and just trying to identify and verify people that we're transacting with. So thank you very much for your session. So we're going to take question and answer from the audience later, but we're going to go to the next speaker. The next speaker is Dayo. So Dayo, please come and tell us about your own experience. Thank you very much, Babs.
Okay, thanks, Ife. Thanks, Babs. Thanks everyone for being here today. So mine will be pretty brief. And a couple of things that I'd like to touch on. One is, what are some of the onboarding patterns that we've seen for our customers at branch? What are some of the hassles during onboarding in Nigeria? And also looking at harmonizing, and I'm just gonna try and talk about, what is a wish list of what I, as a fintech, would like to see happen with digital identity in Nigeria to make my life easier and the lives of most people that are here attending and even here on this panel. So if you just look at it from, a sort of a 30,000 foot view perspective, fintechs as a whole, we work by offering people instant service. We can, the fact that, it's a bank in your phone, you can onboard a customer in just a few minutes, right? So what this translates into for us in general terms is it's a productive pipeline where you can get customers from the beginning of the funnel or the chain to the end of the chain really fast. And that is actually, if you look at our value proposition versus traditional commercial banks, for example, that is what fintechs are bringing to the table. And one of the things that makes this possible, Bob spoke to it about it as well, is looking at BVN, right? So the bank verification number is a form of digital identity. And comparatively speaking in Nigeria, it's pretty rich content, right? The kind of stuff that you have to, the kind of data about a person that you have to capture to be able to issue a BVN to this person is quite rich compared to what we had in the past. So even if you look at providing, say, an international passport, for example, as a form of identity in Nigeria, you don't know the person's address, current address, you don't know what state in the country the person currently lives in. So it's quite limited information that you actually get from a passport, for example. So BVN has been pretty much a game changer for us. It's what has allowed us as an industry, where finance and technology meet. It's what has allowed us to exist at the scale at which we currently exist. And some fintechs actually do things like address verification online. So at the same time that we're able to access and utilize something like a BVN, there's still some real world stuff that we are required to do by regulation to get to higher levels of KYC. And one of them is, verifying the customer's address. Typically, you would ask for, like a utility bill or something, but, at the highest level of KYC, somebody actually has to physically verify the address of this particular customer. So what we are trying to do as well is if we're saying that we want to be a bank in your pocket, in your phone, then we have to find sort of workarounds to make this happen. And one of those workarounds, for example, is if you give us your BVN, sort of like looking to match that to the bank information, right? So we check the information that you do have with a commercial bank and assume that, okay, the commercial bank has actually gone through the trouble of physically verifying your BVN. So that's one of the things that we do. And when I say we, I'm actually speaking largely in general terms. And the other thing as well is, trying to do address verification online. So there's some ways of doing that, but, it's still a fairly cumbersome process to get that done. Now, if you look at some of the patterns that we've seen from our customers, right, from our users, what are our users asking for? The one thing that they do like and they do appreciate is speed, right? Being able to onboard pretty quickly. How quickly can I download your app, verify my information, and become an actual user versus there having to be an extended gap when my data is verified, when my address is verified before I can actually start transacting with your platform. So a very, we get customer feedback about this a lot. The top thing that new customers, new users are really looking for is speed. And then the other pattern that we've actually noticed as well is the fact that customers or potential users tend to drop off when you're asking for too much information. Like, so we, the typical things that we talk about, Bab spoke about it as well, is, take a selfie with your phone, give us your BVN, your full name, put in your date of birth, we match that information with your BVN, blah, blah, blah. If you start going quite a bit beyond that, you tend to see quite a steep drop off of users, from downloading the app to actually becoming a customer. So there's this thing where, and it relates to my first point when we're talking about the fact that customers require speed when you're dealing with people like us. If you're dealing with a commercial bank, you kind of expect there to be a level of tedium. But the minute that you've been able to change a user's mind enough for them to sort of like take their business to a digital player like ourselves, then speed is the top requirement basically that our customers have. And so that, and like I mentioned, what are some of the things that we think are more hassle than helpful during the onboarding process here in Nigeria? It's when you're looking at things like, asking for physical uploads or submission, right? So when you're asking a customer to actually step out of this digital only experience that they're having with your platform and ask them to upload things that they have to go offline to go and do. So if you're talking about utility bills, if you're talking about a form of ID that they perhaps need to scan and send, that kind of thing. So that again is one of the reasons for a pretty steep drop off that you'd see during the onboarding process for users. A second thing is asking customers to wait T plus X days for verification. So if you're saying, great, we have all your information, we'll get back to you in the next 24 to 48 hours about you've been able to verify your information. So from there, sort of moving on to what are some of the things that we see as more hassle than it being actually helpful during the onboarding process for users. And one of the main things is asking for physical uploads or submission. We tend to see quite a large drop off from our customers when, you're trying to take them out of this digital only experience and asking them to upload physical information or submit any kind of physical documents. The second thing that we've seen that is quite the hassle is when you're asking customers to wait T plus X days for verification. So I sit here, I collect all your information, and then, sort of tell you that, well, we'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours to let you know that we've verified your information. That we've typically seen is not great when it comes to the onboarding experience. The third thing would be, if you're looking at lending services, asking users to provide details of guarantors or bank statements or, proof of employment, that kind of thing, turns out to be quite the hassle, which is one of the reasons why, the branch approach was to build our own scoring system and just basically ask you for basic information and use that to assess your credit worthiness and and dispatch loans to you within minutes. And then the last thing is sort of downtimes with technology, right? In all of this, that you're trying to do to make the user experience as smooth and as digital only as possible, if your technology is down frequently, that turns out to be quite the hassle. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about actually is to sort of like take a step back and say that, so I've, extolled the virtues of BVN, right? And how that has served and is serving as the bedrock of fintech in Nigeria. But if you actually take a step back and think about what it takes to actually get a BVN, it requires physical interaction. You have to physically visit a bank or some sort of registration center, and typically wait in line and get your data captured for you to be issued a BVN. And one of the things, actually, it was one of the things that I was working on and funding in my previous life before joining Branch, was how can we go about making sure that people are able to register people for BVN using something as simple as a cell phone. Because if you think about it, all the data that needs to be captured for a BVN has to do with your biometrics, so your fingerprints, your picture, and then text data that's you put into the device to register, and you verify that information and you issue the person a BVN. So how can we make this simpler? Because you typically BVN registration agents have to have a laptop, have to have a separate camera to capture pictures, have to have what they call a 442 fingerprint registration, fingerprint capturing device to be able to do that. And that's a lot of things if you think about the fact that we have, a couple 100 million people in this country for whom we want to get digital identity to. And the other thing as well is harmonizing digital identity into one source. So we've all gone through our recent, NIN, Nigerian Identity Number drive in Nigeria to try to get people, as many people as possible registered for that. A lot of these people also already have BVNs. So for example, speaking personally, I didn't have an NIN until I was forced to do so at the end of last year. And, so now I have my digital identity sitting in two completely different silos. So what can we do about harmonizing digital identity into a single source? So again, businesses like ours are able to use that and truly scale, identifying our customers. And it's not just in fintech, all kinds of digital businesses need to be able to identify people digitally and not that have to be a core part of their service offering, where I have to focus a lot of brain power into how do I identify my customers versus how do I actually get my services to my customers in the best possible way. So that's, my thinking around digital identity, and I will pause there.
Thank you very much, Dayo. I love the fact that your conversation actually focused on the don'ts when you're trying to even start a fintech, especially for people like me, people who are looking towards, starting something in that industry. I love the fact that you said, people who face should have people say that they drop off because they're asking for physical stuff. Like when you start asking, okay, upload this, upload your bank statements, upload your, house address and things like that. Those kind of things can actually let people drop off. Just to summarize what you said. Also, you also spoke about the fact that for them to actually verify people to actually start using their account, some people or some organizations actually take 24 to 48 hours, which, people are not, they don't really have that patience. This generation is actually very, very fast paced, and we're beginning to see more and more that people actually don't have time to waste. They are literally on to the next thing. So it will be best to just have the onboarding process very, very seamless and have everything, just be digital. Also asking for guarantors and all of that can actually also, limit the kind of people who eventually finish that whole onboarding process. So thank you very much for, all that, intel, especially because of the organization that you work for. And I love the fact that Branch is actually being more innovative. So instead of them waiting to take 24 to 48 hours to verify people, like you mentioned, you guys have actually come up with an innovation to actually make that happen within minutes. So thank you very much for that insight. So now I'm going to introduce Esigie Aguele, and I'm smiling so hard because I know what he's doing with VerifyMe Nigeria is super, super helpful. There are a lot of things that are happening, in the country, and we actually need to verify the people that we actually bring to our homes, from nannies to cooks to drivers. And if we don't have a database that you can actually check and say, okay, is this person really Joseph? This person that says his name is Joseph, is it really Joseph, or did he change his name when he got into Nigeria? If this system is actually publicized, I think would have little harm happening. And I love the story about how VerifyMe started, how, he hired somebody that was supposedly called Francis, and this person actually poisoned him and his family. So the founder, who is Tunji, he actually poisoned him and his family, and they literally lost consciousness for 18 hours. And when they woke up eventually, they found out that they had actually been robbed. And guess what? This same Francis, in quote, went to another family within the same estate. This Francis guy had no shame. Within the same estate, to actually go and work with another family. And he had planned with the house help in that house to now poison that family again and actually rob them. And guess what? People actually go to the extreme to actually kill people. I know 2 people who have actually lost their lives to these sort of issues. I'm sure you all heard about the situation, I think 2 years ago in Parkview, where somebody was stabbed, a man was stabbed and everything. I actually know him. He's my auntie's husband, and he was stabbed. And, the guy, he hired him, I think from Ondo State or something. He was trying to help him, and then he came to the house, and then that happened. So it's very unfortunate when this kind of things happen. If people were actually leveraging this VerifyMe platform, maybe he probably would still be alive today. So thank you so much for building or coming up with, such an amazing platform. So now you're going to tell us your own experience of how, digital identity helps everything that you're working on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say a great conversation from Babs and Dayo. You guys are exactly the customers we listen to when we build our products, essentially. So, thank you very much for that. I, learned so much more, and to talk to my team about, when we go back as well. And as well, if it, thank you very much. And the story you tell about, Tunji's experience is how we realized that there was a credibility gap across the board in industry. So, and we soon realized that it really just wasn't one about the domestic space, where people can go and use our platform for verifications there if they want to. It does empower us and enable us, because all of that data is available to our fintech and banking customers. But really on our other platform, which is our API ecosystem, really, we also focus on that because we realize this same credibility gap from the domestic space applies across the board. And so this is why I'm very excited to have this conversation. And I think Dayo, really pointed out some issues about pain, and I would say, their pain in terms of using so much brain power on KYC. Really, this is why VerifyMe is here, right? So that our fintech lenders don't have to focus so much on KYC and really can focus on their core business. And this is why we say we're not a fintech organization, or we're not a fintech startup, but we are fintech enabling. One of the things, as has been so clearly stated here, is that fintech need a customer onboarding experience based on a source of truth. I think Dayo and Babs have, really mentioned that for many reasons, BVN is really the authoritative source of identity when it comes to fintech, lending and credit. One of those is, regulation, where, we can't go beyond a certain threshold without checking an individual's BVN. The other actually is because really NIBS and CBN were the first to innovate on creating this unique identity. BVN is really the key to access an individual's financial data. If we go back about, I would say, maybe 10, 15 years in Nigeria, at some point there was a need for our economy to grow for payments, and I think we see this with all the cashless drive. But we actually needed payments to happen at a high pace and a high rate, so that transactions can happen, so that the economy can move faster. And payments couldn't happen, or payments cannot happen without identity. In fact, from a VerifyMe perspective, we see it, in 4 stacks, where identity is really the enabler to payments, because you need identities to open accounts, so that those accounts can be anti-money laundering compliant. And what has happened is BVN really enabled that identity that was able to enable payments and payments transfers, which we've seen an explosion of in Nigeria in recent years, and really the past 10 years. And that data, even as we're looking at all the V's of data, has created a volume of data that people can use to mine, to build products on, to provide other financial profiling, I would say, products for their customers. And this is why BVN is particularly a key. So it's really a key from a banking identity perspective, a regulation perspective, but also it unlocks the data as a service layer you need for additional profiling of customers. And one of the reasons we're very excited to do this here today is because we want to talk about the use of BVN, NIN, driver's license across the board for customer onboarding. As we know, there are 200 million Nigerians, where 50 million, a bit under 50 million have BVN. I think 65 million have NIN. There's some, overlap there. And I think maybe just under 10 million have the driver's license. And that driver's license number is expected to grow probably to about 60, 70 million in very short term, based on regulation and policies that's going out. So it's about using these identities to, I would say, onboard your customer where available, and plugging into ecosystems that are now available that I would say take away the headache of onboarding or knowing who your customer is, so that you can give them products. Next slide, please. So I would say, going past customer onboarding is really, and we talk about this with our customers as well. We say it's not really so much about KYC. And so from our perspective, we deal with a lot of, I would say, traditional banks. So quite a few commercial banks use our product. Quite a few microfinance banks use our product that behave like traditional banks. And a lot of times KYC, the address verification piece of it, is kind of seen as a chore, like just something they want to get over so they can open the account and let that account sit there for, whatever purpose. As opposed to looking at, I would say, onboarding as the key to unlocking growth. And when you look at it as the key to unlocking growth, you now start to look at the attributes of that onboarding in terms of, when I onboard this customer, what additional profiles can I get from that customer so that I can basically cross-sell to scale my opportunities? How can I look at this customer so that I can provide services, take a short-term, long-term view of that customer, and help that customer even with their own growth? And for us, this is what we want to encourage our fintech customers to look at onboarding as, right? The first opportunity to unlock growth by getting as much data about that customer from so many sources. And of course, a very great rate, because it's onboarding, right? We want our customers to do tens of thousands even in a day. And so this is what it's about for us as well. It's about KYC to scale and KYC to unlock growth. So just going on to the next, next view of things for us. I want to talk about, we'll just talk about some case studies, how we I would say, take away the headache for our customers. First of all, VerifyMe provides NIN and driver's license, of which we're direct sourced. to our customers for onboarding. We look at it not just as ID verification, but we link identities to locations. We link identities to payroll information. We link, and when I say locations, I mean addresses. And we're in the future, we'll be linking identities to other products such as financial data as well. Now, when we link identities to locations, Dayo is very right? We find that there are cumbersome workflows, particularly for fast-moving fintechs, where they don't have the 24 and 48 hours to wait for traditional address verifications that commercial banks need to be compliant with. So as a result, really, we don't look at our our address verification as, I would say, a product. It really is a service. We do have many customers that use anything from our traditional address verification, of which actually we're the fastest. We do it in under 24 hours for all major cities in Nigeria, and for actually over 20 banks to date. But we also provide technologies for geotagging so that we can provide instant address verification. And we actually pull together an ecosystem as well, just like Dayo said, where we can pull addresses from either the driver's license, the BVN, or any other authoritative source of identity to provide an address for a customer. So one of the benefits of using us is that we are an ecosystem, so we have a wider set of data than any one fintech who doesn't specialize in that can provide. And we're able to provide it at a commercial rate. So to obviously, one of the reasons we're having this is to really shed the light to our customers that there are actually organizations like VerifyMe that enable our fintech customers to focus on their core business and let us do the KYC for them. So, for example, we have, I believe, upwards of 15 microfinance banks use us for identity verification. They use any of our address verification products, from traditional to geotagging products, depending on the service and the use case at that time. With one bank, we have a use case where we've actually been able to help them approve 50,000 loans, and that is, I believe, in 90 days. For them, and that's just one financial institution. And that's been real scale for them, where they haven't been able to meet that number in the past. We have, of course, pension companies, some of our biggest. To date, we have amongst the largest pension companies signed up with us. We're able to do their name verifications, which is a compliance need for them. But also, we're very big in the facial recognition space. VerifyMe is one of the local Nigerian companies that has we've built our own facial recognition technology, so we don't pay licenses for it. And we actually provide IMLI verifications for pension funds. And we do have fintech partners today using our facial recognition product for contactless account opening. I'm glad Bab said liveness check, because the truth is, in Nigeria today, the photo matching is turning out not to be enough. And so we also have built very powerful liveness technology that's able to detect fraud in many ways. And we're doing this today for quite a few of our fintech customers, providing contactless account opening. One of the things I want to add about our facial recognition is remote account services is we did see an explosion in 2020. In 2020 alone, and I say this to my team, I call it the 2020 plan that happened to us. In 2020 alone, we signed 20 banks, which was a feat for us. And this year we really probably have already exceeded that. So I think contactless account opening really came to life, and we were able to bring a lot of our services and our products to our customers so that we could once again take away the headache. Interestingly enough, what we're trying to do is build a critical infrastructure layer for verification in Nigeria across the board. We try to be direct source to our government. We are licensed by NIMC and NITA compliant, and work with FRSC, NIMC, and are actually actively working to restructure the way we deliver BVN by going through the KYC license under the recent CBN regulation that was put out. We're also members of open banking and very compliant with it, and support open banking drive and philosophy in Nigeria. Our API is basically through one API gateway, our customers are able to access any of these authoritative sources of identity. We do have business verification capabilities, by the way, which we should have featured, but we're rolling out solid business capabilities for business banks that will enable our customers to open business bank accounts even in minutes. One of the great things about us is also channels. We have the ability to do phone number onboarding, where we can get a customer's unique ID from their telephone number if it's registered. This allows us to not just reach the 50 million BVN customers, but the 120 or 160, depending on how we see individuals with multiple SIMs, million Nigerians that are on non-smartphones. And also need to access services. To date, we're actually doing this for quite a few of our banking customers, and we're seeing that they're getting significant results actually using these channels to communicate with their customers. Okay, so what's so great about us? And I think this is the slide I would say that helps take away the headache. One of the things I'm excited about is, and this 10,000, that we're being shortchanged, this 10,000 agent number is wrong. We do have 11,000 agents across the country that do address verifications for us. We do not utilize all 11,000 agents because the throughput then would be very high. It's really growing. We utilize probably about a third of that. And we operate in every local government where there's no insurgency. What's unique about us is that our address verification is AML compliant. We use the best technology to monitor the agents. We guarantee it. We do it under 24 hours. And we're able to do it for businesses as well. Another unique thing about us, we noticed with our banking customers, is because there's no standardization of addresses in Nigeria, there is a big problem with vague addresses. I would tell you this: we've once received, kind of a big dump of addresses of 2,000 addresses from a customer from a set of branches in the north, and 1,900 of those addresses were vague. They didn't have a street number, proper street name, LGA, just wrong information. And that's so much revenue loss. If you look at it from that bank's perspective, they could not open 1,900 accounts. They could only open 100 out of 2,000. So we've innovated, and we're actually able to provide innovative technology that helps deal with vague addresses, where we have algorithms that detect that address and goes through a workflow to correct it, either with the customer or through other aggregated data sources that we have to basically reconstruct the address for our customer so that they can still acquire their own customer. We use our data marketplace. As you know, traditional addresses are expensive because there is a human in the loop, as I say, where somebody has to physically go and check the address, as Dayo had said. And so we're always looking, when VerifyMe, by the way, just to preface, when we started about 3 years ago, address verifications were about, I would say, 1,500 to 2,000 naira for our fintech customers. We have been at the forefront of driving this price. Yes?
Sorry, Esigie, sorry, I have to pause. I have to stop you there, please, if you don't mind. But I'm sure by the time we continue the conversations, even from the question and answer, I'm sure you'll be able to cover, everything, because we had already gone.
Oh, I went to Don't worry.
Thank you very much for that. Right. It's so funny how you start with one business, trying to just help, with domestic stuff and everything, and how you can transition into this huge thing that is actually transforming the whole, banking industry. So kudos to VerifyMe. I really, really love what you all are doing, and all the other fintechs and everybody trying to transform Africa. So now going to go into question and answer sessions. I've already seen some questions, here, and I also have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask. So the first question that I can see here is it possible to operate a fintech business without KYC, something like a business that collects your cryptocurrencies and sends you Naira without you signing up on the platform? So who's going to take that? I think Babs can take that, please. Babs or Dayo, actually.
I mean, I think that's fairly easy. As a regulated entity, we cannot sort of, participate in cryptocurrency. And I'm not sure many people want to participate in cryptocurrency right now. The dip is still dipping. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. For Esigie, I have a question for you. So take me, for example, I'm a new mom. I need to verify my new nanny. Her name is, let's say, I'm just going to call it a random name. Let's say Uche Aguso. How can I actually check? So do I just go on your platform, type Uche Aguso, and her details comes out? Do I need to pay? Is it free? How does it work?
Mm-hmm. So it's not free because we provide a service, but it's very affordable. For 200 Naira on the retail side, you can do an instant ID verification. And for about, I would say 1,000 Naira, so you can do a full address verification where you have all the information. It probably takes about 3 minutes to do so. We encourage everyone who is hiring somebody to definitely check them. But one of the great things about us is that you can also, it's a national repository for work history. If you hire that individual and there is a work infraction, you can also report it on that website, on our website. And that information is basically published after it's verified, so that anyone who checks that information in the future has access to it as well. And the reason this is so great for us is that we have a repository of, over 400,000 work histories. And in the future, this is going to be relevant to even our fintech customers and so many other customers. And actually a domestic access to domestic workers in Lagos alone of over 3 million domestic workers who we check.
Oh, fantastic. But what if I check and her information is not there? Can I register a new, easily? Can I register, start the process for a new person who isn't already registered on your platform?
So that's a great question. So most ID technology companies also, so there's the ID verification, but then there's the enrollment services. They're not essentially the same thing, but with VerifyMe, because we are pioneers in this space in Nigeria, we've always engaged the government from the beginning. We actually have the ability to register individuals ourselves. Now, I know Dayo had said about making it easier. I wish, trust me, I recently just shipped, I think about 50 printers, monitors, laptops, 442s to a state. And I'm just like, why do we have to do this? But the way you would have to register them, unfortunately, is to either go to the NIMSI website to find out the latest location, or you go to verifyme.ng to our website and find one of our locations, have them go register. They get their name instantly, by the way, and you can verify them. Another way is encourage them to open a bank account if they're not banked. Now, we do not provide BVN verification for retail, by the way, because there's also, it needs to be protected because it's access to financial data. I do agree a lot of the regulation that has come up have been responsible steps to curtail fraud, albeit there needs to be information given beforehand and clear steps on how to get access beforehand. But yes, with NIN and FRSC, certainly you can.
Thank you very much for your response. So I have another question. So how do fintechs like Branch and Kuda currently avoid the don'ts of customer onboarding? So I remember, Dayo had mentioned, some of the hassles and all of that we shouldn't do. So how can fintechs, currently avoid these don'ts and make it fully digital?
Is that to me?
No, that's not to you. Sorry, that's to either Dayo or Babs. I think Dayo can take this actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll take that and just talk about maybe some of the things that we do. So if we talk about, for example, on the lending side, requiring users to provide guarantors or banking statements or employment history and that kind of thing. From the onset, what we did was to build an algorithm and build a data machine that basically has a unique credit. We have our own unique credit scoring technology, right? So we, it's based on a few things, what kind of phone you use, what's your history with other lenders. There's a whole bunch of data points that we gather and we use to credit score you. And the other thing as well that we do is also having created a loan ladder. So, as you continue to lend from us, you actually building your own credit history. And the more as you continue to borrow, I should say, the more you borrow and the more you pay back on time, the more money you're able to borrow in the future. So that's just one way, for example, that we sort of like remove the hassle of having to deal with, of people having to provide third parties for us to be able to say that, yes, this person is creditworthy.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Bad, during your conversation, you mentioned that you have access to BVN database, and Dayo also mentioned or complained about the fact that, NIMC has their own database, BVN has their own database and all of that. First question is, can smaller fintech companies or smaller organizations have access to these databases? And how can the fintechs that are starting have access to both during like the onboarding process?
I think so. Recently, I think there's some regulation about who has access. I mean, I'm not sure exactly who can and who can't, but I mean, I know as a microfinance bank, Kuda can, and there's also some regulation around what we can do with that information. So I think in the past it was easy for us to sort of pass that information to other fintech companies. I'm not sort of completely clear on what the current situation is, because obviously, look, regulation is always, it's moving. So I think right now, I don't think, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think if you're not some sort of a bank or deposit taking sort of tech company that you are able to get that access. But that's very recent. I think that happened in the last couple of months or so. So what was the second question? Something about
so pulling together. So NIMC has their own database. So like Dayo also mentioned.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, ordinarily in it's one of the things that I think as a country we need to do better at. Just how do we harmonize all the different pieces of information we have, but then again, I think that's why companies like VerifyMe sort of do have an opportunity to have even more of a successful business, because if the work is not done, then someone needs to do it. Again, as we know, in Nigeria, sometimes the things that are being done, we don't always know sort of the true rationale behind absolutely everything that's been done. We don't always have all the information. So maybe there is a reason why it's been done separately. Maybe there's a high level of sort of incorrect information in the BVN. Maybe this is an opportunity to fix it with a NIN. Maybe they're owned by two different promoters. And
that's a very charitable interpretation, Babs.
Sorry.
That's a very
let me help.
Very charitable interpretation.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know the reasons.
No.
No, but just to talk about the first part of the question that Babs was answering. So basically what the regulator did was to clarify that if you're not licensed by the CBN, you can't have access to BVN. That's basically, it was always a rule, but they just clarified and enforced it. And the thinking behind that is actually data protection, right? So they don't want, because you have a lot of sensitive information that sits on the BVN databases, and you don't want just anybody having access to that. And I think there was also a little bit of abuse of the system where instead of the third-party entities who were providing BVN verification services to be running a check on the BVNs sitting on NIBS's database, they were storing some of that information just to basically reduce the latency in checking, doing the BVN verification. So then you have sort of an unlicensed entity, because NIBS on behalf of CBN is supposed to be the data repository for the BVN. So that's what happened. So to answer your question around can a fintech starting out today, have access to VPN, I think the short answer has been clarified as no. You would need to be properly regulated by the CBN to have access to that data.
Yeah. So and under that, there are different categories. So there is the deposit bank category. There's the credit agency category, and then the different environments. So you have the sandbox. So we are expecting to be one of the licensed as well. So, but we're not a bank. But they have created those avenues. I think maybe it was a shock to the system more because people found out last minute, as opposed to whether it was the wrong decision or the right decision. Because it was done for replication, to stop replication, to stop abuse, to stop fraud, and it should be regulated because it's access to financial data. So that's on the first part. But I would say on the second part of things, in terms of talking about harmonization, there has been some harmonization already. I think about 15 million BVNs were already harmonized with NIN at the time, and this is when there were 30 million BVNs. So that's why a lot of times when you go to get your NIN, they ask you for your BVN first. One of the problems with that was because BVN started first, and at the time it was 222 fingerprint collection. And I think the PPI standard, in terms of the standards needed for things like facial recognition and other biometrics to properly work and be migrated over, weren't, I would say, compliant. It's not about quality or anything. So I think there was a limit to the amount of information that can be ported over. But if you now look at regulation where you cannot get your driver's license without your NIN, and if you have your NIN, you can go get it. If you don't have your NIN, they register you there, and same with passport. That essentially is harmonization, because in another 5-10 years, it's a high number of people who have it now, but that number is going to be close. So if you think about it, in 10 years or so, Nigeria registered 30 million people. In 5 months, they registered another 30 million or 25 million or something like that because of regulation. So I would say there's a lot of work going on. And you are right, Babs. Somebody's got to do the work in terms of harmonization. So this is where we come in, right? We know we have a lot of information on our customers in terms of their FRSC, their NIN, and their BVN, and we're able to give integrated IDs to our customers. Another unique thing is, we always say in VerifyMe, identity is not enough, or your digital identity is not enough, because there's the whole device identity technology as well, where we provide device fingerprinting, and we have innovative device fingerprinting that we're rolling out. Basically, guaranteed device fingerprinting. You would see a publication today that NCC is going to be collecting the IMEI, and all of these are foundations for providing better products that are going to eliminate things like SIM swap fraud and other problems that we have. So a lot going on in that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So how important, and this is to Dayo, how important would you say eKYC is to the growth of financial services in Nigeria? And why should fintechs and banks integrate it into their customer onboarding process?
It's vital. It's vital. I think it's the bedrock, it's the foundation of the work I'm doing, the work Babs is doing, the work Esigie is doing. It is extremely vital. You can't have one really scale without the other. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
So let me just bring it up. So why should fintechs and banks integrate it into their customer onboarding process?
I mean, because if it's when I was speaking earlier, I talked about the lag time between getting the information and verifying the information. Also spoke about why there's a high drop-off point when you have when identification verification and KYC verification is taking too long. So it's vital to be able to provide a service that your customers actually want. To keep your customers within your ecosystem and not have them drop off to go try somebody else who might get it done quicker. So I think it's extremely vital to the survival and the scaling of whether it's traditional banking services or digital banking services like the ones we provide.
Thank you very much. So I have a question for Babs. So what are the challenges that Kuda has faced with building an efficient and seamless onboarding system? Were there any hitches with implementing the eKYC system?
Yeah, absolutely. We still face challenges today. Because it's a continuous process, and because it's largely built around technology. Every time there's a change, even a small change, to kind of make that change happen using technology actually takes a while, because you can't get it wrong. Once you get it wrong, it's a disaster, and you're kind of just it's a backward step. So there's a whole sort of having enough resources, enough engineering resources to keep iterating. There's also, things that are sort of not within our control sometimes. And that's on two things, device and education. It's sometimes difficult to onboard certain people, just because of the sort of potential limited exposure that they've had to, technology. So we have to do a lot more in making our product sort of really, really simple. But at the same time, you can't make it too simple because it's financial services. It needs to be a bit hard because, you have certain people trying to come into the system. So it's just a question of how do you get that balance right between, making it accessible enough, but not too easy. And it's true, it just cannot be too easy. You're going to be transferring money, you're going to be receiving money, and quite frankly, I agree that things need to move fast, and it's a problem for us. But, if you're going to borrow money, if you're going to transfer a lot of money and we're asking for, certain information, you got to give it, so I think it's just knowing where that balance is, so there are lots of challenges, and it's never ending. Changing regulation is also a challenge, when it changes quickly, and you kind of have to do it now. Sometimes, the regulator would come and say, hey, oh, why are you doing that? And you're like, and you can't change it immediately. So, that's also sort of an issue. It's kind of like you have to be proactive. You have to build a relationship with the regulator so you know what's coming before it comes. So yeah, it's a whole lot of work. And this is just on KYC, yeah.
Thank you very much, Babs.
Hopefully, Babs, and I hope working with companies like VerifyMe makes it easier too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We can't do this alone, to be honest. It's, we need like strong partners that are as ambitious and relentless as we are in trying to actually, offer sort of best practice solutions. So yeah, completely agree. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm really enjoying this conversation. But before we even continue, a poll is going to pop up very soon, so it doesn't affect anything. So once you see the poll pop up, please just, respond to the questions that you're asked, and you can still keep dropping the questions or more questions in the Q&A section. So the next question I have here is from Imo. So he or she is saying, the recent CBN decision to halt KYC verification by digital businesses. So the person is trying to say that, CBN came up with like a circular to halt this. So is VerifyMe an enabling solution, or how is this supposed to work if something came out from CBN saying that KYC should be halted? So is this actually even true? And if yes, how can this be managed? So this is for Esigie.
Yes, to my knowledge, I don't recall CBN saying that KYC should be halted. What they did say is that they just put out regulation for how KYC is done. So I think Dayo had said, and I'll just reiterate that, the first thing was financial institutions that had access to BVN were no longer allowed to replicate, and they were no longer allowed to sell to third-party organizations. So what that did was it basically made anyone who needed BVN make a request to CBN directly. And I think at that point, based on the regulation, they are going to license KYC companies based on that. And then there's going to be compliance. The truth is, I think that BVN really should be an ID for the fintech space. There's no reason where if somebody's getting a job in, for example, a domestic space, it's the BVN that they're using. If you're getting a driver job, for example, why should it be your BVN? You should have a driver's license. So there's so many use cases for, I think, other foundational IDs. So I think BVN is very powerful in the fintech space, and this actually is the reason why it should be regulated. But to answer the question, I don't recall it being stopped. I just recall it being regulated.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So another question for Esigie is, like, there's so many people asking you questions. So Topo is saying your slides mention payroll data. Please expand on this a bit. Where do you get the data, and is it available via API?
Interesting question. Yes, we very shortly we will have I said payroll data available over API, and we have employment data now available over API. There's some payroll data available, but it's not scaled. We're looking to scale it in the very, very short term, and we believe this is the next frontier. And so I think it's part of the whole KYC world that we're bringing. We've been doing, I would say, employment data for about 4 years now. So even before our APIs came online, we have, I would say, most of the employment data we have is more in the, I would say, unbanked and low or limited banked space, where a lot of them are domestic workers, because we've done a lot of employment verifications in that space. But yeah, no, payroll data is definitely coming online.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'm just trying to look through some more questions. Okay. So I'm saying, I think the MNOs play a very important role in providing a seamless experience to customers. How do we deal with downtime caused by traffic, etc. on the MNO side? So that's from Adelaide.
Well, if I can take that a little bit, I mean, I think dealing with downtime is just about, investing in infrastructure so that we can deal with, the traffic that's coming through our towers. And I think we've seen some of that with all of the costs for telco implementations reduced in states. So some of that is coming online. In terms of how MNOs can play a role, they already do. They have a lot of information, I think, that can eventually help for geotagging. They have a lot of telco data, telco payments data as well. And as you look at the Nigerian Vs, all the, we started out with volume of data, variety of data, veracity of data. I think the telcos are one of the things that help increase the veracity of data that we have, the variety of data. So we have banking data, telco data, and they have a lot of it. So yes, definitely, I think eventually they'll be a key player. Now, whether they should be licensed for ID verification, to do ID verification directly, of course, I would say no.
Okay. Okay, so this question is for Babs. What can traditional banks learn from fintechs about customer onboarding?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the two sort of different channels, I would say, if traditional banks want to onboard digitally, fintechs basically, especially in the digital banking space, have no other choice. We have to onboard digitally. So there's a lot more, I think, sort of thought process that goes into that aspect of onboarding from a company like ours, just because we have no other option. So I think there are lots of experiences that we've had just because we're right at the forefront of it. Even in terms of identifying potential fraud in terms of customers coming on board. I think it goes. I also go back to that whole concept of really fast. In my experience, a lot of customers that want to be onboarded really fast are like unreasonably fast. It's a red flag. If you need to be onboarded like right now, this minute, and start transacting, it's a red flag. So it goes back to that thing about balance. And then also, I think one critical thing that I also noticed is, while I think fintechs have kind of had a little bit of a hard time with sort of digital onboarding, a little bit from sort of maybe non-fintech supporters, actually the fact that there's an API that is at the first base confirming the authenticity of a particular ID is actually a lot stronger than somebody walking into a bank and presenting either a driver's license. How do you know that is a real driver's license? Yeah, it looks real, but how do you know if it's real? And you compare that to to a company that has actually checked it from the source, from the organization that actually produces the ID. So I think there's a lot of unfair flag, but I would say digital onboarding is actually a lot stronger than physical, just because it's very and then you also remove things like collusion as well. You can go in, you can have like your boyfriend, girlfriend at the till that just allows it to go through. With digital, there's no collusion. It's either authentic or it's not. So these are some of the things I think onboarding digitally has an edge over like the physical nature. So I would definitely encourage more. Actually, maybe not, because we want to stay ahead of the game. We want to,
so, why are you giving away your secret?
Traditional banks keep, doing it traditional way, and we'll keep doing it digitally.
Thank you so much, Babs. I know that we're really enjoying the conversation. I love all the insights that all the speakers have brought on board, but we have to end very soon. So I'm just going to try to close this conversation. We've absolutely enjoyed everything, all the insights, and I'm sure at the end of this, you can even reach out to them if you have other questions. So I'm just going to pretty much conclude. So we have something that is going, you guys have to fill out, please, a post-event survey. So it will be posted. So please fill out that survey when you get it. If the speakers have any final thoughts, please, would like to hear your closing remarks or anything you have to say at this point. So I'll start with Dayo. Please share any final thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, well, thanks again to the TechCabal team and, in conjunction with VerifyMe for bringing all of us here together to talk about this. My, closing thoughts are very simple. I continue to remain optimistic about the business that I am in this country, and, the opportunity to actually grow exponentially. While, Babs has mentioned, there are lots of obstacles that you have to sort of keep dodging on a day-to-day basis, and surprises that crop up from, whether it's from the market, whether it's from the regulators, or whatever the thing is. But, we are all collectively building and simultaneously learning every day. And yeah, so I'm, just super optimistic about about Nigeria and about, our business scaling exponentially here, and just taking that to the world. So watch this space, and thanks to everyone for joining.
Thank you very much. So Babs, your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo similar things of what Dayo said. I think we have a real opportunity to fix a lot of things. We have a real opportunity to fix financial inclusion, and one entity, a couple of entities cannot do it. It's truly a collective effort. Even with regulators, I mean, the BVN was a regulatory thing, the NIN is a regulatory thing. So, it truly is a collective effort. And I think if we all, one wish for me, ideally, is to have sort of a continuous ability to actually sit at the table with every stakeholder and actually share what we've seen. There's a lot of learnings that we have, and we always try to do that to share with all stakeholders, because if the whole ecosystem is improved, it's beneficial for us. We can scale a lot faster, a lot easier. So I encourage continuous collective effort from everybody, and I'm excited. I'm truly excited about sort of the opportunities that is ahead of us.
Thank you very much, Babs. So Esigie, you have the floor to tell us your final thoughts.
No worries. Yeah, so I obviously want to take the opportunity to thank everyone. This was really very interesting and insightful. Like Dayo, I'm so bullish about this space as well. I think Nigeria may be the hardest place in the world to do business, but the best investment places at the same time, which is kind of an oxymoron. Somebody told me that this morning, and thanks, Tunji. And I say to all our fintech customers, talk to your KYC companies. There are KYC companies like VerifyMe. I believe we are the best and the leading, actually very few, none like us really, as we're an innovator in Nigeria, and see what we can do for you to take away the headache. We invite our Fintechs to come and talk to us. We're particularly also, interested in this space because we're literally growing, 2x, 3x from month to month. So watch this space as well for us, and we're very, very excited. Thank you guys for joining, Babs. I always watch you guys from afar, so proud of you guys, and Dayo as well. Nice one.
Thank you to all our amazing speakers. Thanks to all our amazing, attendees who joined the session and stayed with us till the end. I'm sure by now you guys know the importance of digital identity. It matters so much, and you prevent a lot of headache in the future if you actually take the right steps towards getting all the information from your customers. So you guys are super, super amazing. Thank you. Tell all your friends also. Go. I'm sure this session is going to be put up on YouTube so that they can watch it and learn for themselves and understand how important it is for us to take these things very, very seriously. And don't forget, for everyone who's watching, don't forget to fill out the post-event survey. The link will be in the chat room. And this event was put together by TechCabal Insights in partnership with VerifyMe. TechCabal Insights is TechCabal's data research and intelligence unit, which provides actionable data on startups and the tech ecosystem across Africa to investors, entrepreneurs, big tech companies, regulators, and other players across the continent. So thank you everyone once again for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you very soon. The next session actually is next week Friday, the 28th of May. So you guys can join the session. It's also going to be an insightful session like this. Join the session. You can register for it, and Alex also puts that link in the chat room so you guys can get prepared for next week. Bye everyone. Thank you very much and stay blessed.
Same to you. Bye.